sounding that alarm. We need to take notice of it, but most importantly, we need to take action on that.
Tonight, Indigenous leaders in BC warn increased use of fossil fuels means even more forests will go up in smoke.
Once we have an official poverty line, we will be able to set targets and measure our progress against them.
Canada moves to eradicate poverty, but must set the dollar amount on what that poverty line is.
Because I've studied her life for so long that it was like she sat down next to me and just kind of dictated it to me.
And the memory of the church's first Mohawk saint lives on to inspire a new audience.
Good evening, welcome to APTN National News. I'm Dennis Ward.
And I'm Melissa Ridgen. It's been 7 days since British Columbia declared a state of emergency. Hundreds of fires continue to burn and thousands of people are still under evacuation, while tinder-dry conditions are expected to continue.
As the fires rage on, so do those connecting the disaster to climate change. Lori Hamlin has the story.
Over 500 wildfires are raging throughout British Columbia. More fires are now burning than during last year's record season.
One of the differences this year, even unlike last year, was we have almost every area of the province with major fires going right now.
Thick, heavy smoke grounded helicopters and air tankers in many areas, including APTN News. We planned to go out with crews in southern BC, but poor visibility held us back.
The smoke itself does create a problem for us from a visibility perspective and from a safety perspective. So two things occur. We can't use the aircraft to support the firefighters, so we just lose that tool. It's not available. It's a water delivery system, but not only water delivery, it gives us what we like to call an eye in the sky, someone who's visually observing the fire behavior and can give our staff a heads up. We're still out there working, and we still do the best we can.
Glenn Burgess has been fighting fires for 30 years. He says BC's new hotter temperatures are creating a different fire environment.
People can argue about why global warming is occurring or not occurring, but from us, from our perspective, we're seeing trends that seem to indicate it's getting warmer and drier, and fire season seems to get longer.
Clearly anyone can add all of that up and say, you know what, this is real evidence of what's going on. We're burning up here. We need to really change what we're doing.
Chief Judy Wilson is from Nisconluth Indian Band, just outside Kamloops. That fire zone alone has over 80 active wildfires.
Mother Earth is sounding that alarm. We need to take notice of it, but most importantly, we need to take action on that.
Wilson thinks the province should be looking at one big cause of climate change: fossil fuels. She and the Union of BC Indian Chiefs have written an open letter calling on the BC government to continue to stand up to Ottawa to stop the Trans Mountain pipeline expansion. The chief says keeping the oil in the ground is the only way to decrease Canada's contribution to global warming.
We need to all stand together on this, and the province did say, we're opposing the Trans Mountain pipeline, and they need to stand on that.
Lori Hamlin, APTN National News, Kamloops.
A decommissioned nuclear facility will be buried underground. At least that's what Canadian Nuclear Laboratories wants to do with Chalk River, Ontario. The company insists it will be safe, but as APTN's Todd Lamarand explains, some First Nations citizens, groups and environmentalists don't buy it.
A 1.5-hour press conference discussed the problems associated with decommissioned nuclear reactors. A lot of talk centered around the Chalk River facility nearly 200 kilometers north of Ottawa.
It's only about 200 meters maximum from the Ottawa River. I mean, to turn this site into a radioactive waste repository of permanent proportions just on the basis of the say-so of a consortium of people who were hired to do the job is ridiculous.
One speaker said, a decision about Chalk River is not being done in a public enough manner.
Is that a proper inquiry hasn't been made, and that choosing a solution because it's the fastest, most cost-effective way is absolutely the very most wrong way to go about it.
Canadian Nuclear Laboratories, CNL, wants to tear down buildings no longer in use and bury them along with low-level nuclear waste. The company insists no significant amounts of radiation will get in or out.
It's not designed to allow materials to get out. And there's also a very substantial cover, again, 2 meters thick, designed to prevent infiltration of, rainwater or snow melt or anything like that.
CNL will monitor the site for the next 200 years for radiation.
So it is low-level waste. It's consistent with the definitions internationally and used in Canada. And after, like I said, after about 200 years, we're very close to normal background levels in this area.
Gordon Edwards says it's more like 1,000 years.
When they talk about 200 years, they're simply waving their hands and ignoring a host of radioactive materials, which they themselves have listed as part of the waste that is in the defunct reactors.
Another speaker wondered why buildings and waste couldn't be stored in a cavern away from the Ottawa River.
If such a cavern was designed such that the waste were properly packaged, that could be monitored, and they could be retrieved if anything goes wrong, it would be far better than the proposals that we're being faced with now.
And if we were to look at a site off the Chalk River area, of course, that would involve transport of the nominally 1 million cubic meters of waste. So keeping it at Chalk River minimizes the risks associated with transportations.
CNL is meeting with the Canadian Nuclear Safety Commission to discuss its plan Wednesday afternoon. Todd Lamoran, APTN National News, Ottawa.
Another groundbreaking for Enbridge's Line 3 project, this time in Saskatchewan. First Nation and Métis leaders, company officials and members of Parliament were on hand for the latest event as construction is getting underway. The $5.3 billion project involves the replacement of nearly 1,100 kilometers of pipeline from Hardisty, Alberta to Gretna, Manitoba. The pipeline will run through the traditional territory of Tekakwitha First Nation. The chief says 20 members are currently working on the pipeline project.
In a democratic society, not everyone's going to be on board. Not all First Nations people are for it. Not all First Nations people are against it. But in terms of being a chief, I was elected to be chief to provide opportunity for my people, to provide jobs. And Line 3 does that for our people. It's going to be for a short 6-7 months, but we hope that we can use it as a springboard to get these guys permanent jobs elsewhere.
2 more arrests today in Burnaby, British Columbia, as a week of action against the Trans Mountain Pipeline gets underway. Tuesday's demonstration near Kinder Morgan's oil tanker terminal blocked access to the construction site for 2 hours. On Wednesday, federal cabinet ministers, including Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, will be meeting in Nanaimo. Protests are planned for that event and the Liberal fundraiser the following day.
Another John A. Macdonald statue has been vandalized in Regina again. There's currently a petition to have it taken down. There is red paint on the statue's hands, on the boot, and by Macdonald's name. The statue was previously vandalized in February when someone spray painted it green and yellow. The statue in Montreal was also vandalized with red paint last week. This comes after Victoria recently removed a Macdonald statue from City Hall as part of its reconciliation efforts with First Nations groups. Time for a quick break.
When we come back, the federal government's anti-poverty strategy. But first, here's Wednesday's weather. Starting in Newfoundland, we got 22 in rain in St. John's. We've got 23 in rain in Fredericton. Inukjuak is in at 10, Kuujjuaq 18. Lots of cloud down south in Quebec, 20 in Quebec City, 22 in Montreal and rain. 21 in rain in Toronto. North Bay, sunny in 20. Sault Ste. Marie, sunny in 21. Big Trout Lake, 23 in sunshine as well in Sioux Lookout, but 25 degrees, 24 in Thunder Bay. 12 in rain in Churchill. Puckatawagan's in at 24 with some sunshine, 23 in Thompson. Princess Harbour, sunshine and 26 with 26 in Barons River as well. 29 in Gimli and Winnipeg. 29 in Saskatoon. 28 and lots of sunshine in Regina. 15 in rain in Stony Rapids and Uranium City. 27 in sunshine in La Ronge. 28 and sun in Meadow Lake. Welcome back. The Trudeau government unveiled its anti-poverty plan this week. In 2015, 4.2 million people in Canada were living in poverty. Ottawa hopes to reduce this by 20% by the year 2020. Brittany Hobson brings us more.
The federal government has announced its lofty plan to combat the poverty rate in Canada. By 2020, they hope to reduce the rate by 20%, and by 2030, 50%. However, no new investments are being designated for the plan. Instead, the government is relying on current programs.
What's new in this is that in the fall of 2018, we will be introducing the Eradication of Poverty Act. Inside that act will be Canada's official poverty line. That will be entrenched in legislation. Inside the act will be our plan to reduce the poverty rates.
Currently, there is no exact dollar amount where the line is drawn, but in 2015, there were 4.2 million Canadians living in poverty.
For the first time ever, we'll be setting Canada's first official poverty line.
Since then, the Trudeau government has allotted $22 billion to eradicate poverty. Liberal MP Dan Vandel says new money will be put toward housing policies in 2019. He added introducing the new legislation will hold the government to account.
Once we have an official poverty line, we will be able to set targets and measure our progress against them. We will publish data annually to show that where we are as a country, and we will give governments, stakeholders, academics, and the general public greater insight into what is working and what needs to be changed in order to meet our targets.
Lawrence Kwan works with Indigenous and newcomer families at the Barbara Mitchell Family Resource Centre. She says the strategy needs to fund training programs for community members.
Better resources, better education, I guess, or opportunities for families to be able to access training so that they could potentially, get off, whether if they're on EIA, to be off of EIA and to get a job and be successful.
The strategy will also include the creation of a national committee to end poverty. Brittany Hobson, APTN National News, Winnipeg.
A fictional story based on a reality that more than 1,000 families have experienced is being made into a movie. Filming for Rustic Oracle, a movie about missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls, is underway in Quebec. With more, here's our colleagues at CTV.
And action, come out of the school, and you can walk at talk to each other.
It's a fictional story based on a reality more than 1,000 families have experienced in their lives. A missing Indigenous girl and her family's quest to find her.
It has become such a big social issue that we've lost touch with the actual people that have lived it.
For the film's director, the goal is to portray a family going through feelings every family, regardless of nationality, can relate to if they have lost a child.
I want it to be about connecting people through emotion, and that's how you get messages across, in my opinion. Actually, what I've experienced with fiction is you actually get to touch people, and then they become aware, and then they become more sensitive to the actual issue.
The film, made up of a mainly Mohawk cast, is shot and set in Oka and Genesitake in the late 90s, 7 years after the Oka crisis and before law enforcement really recognized the issue of missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls.
There's so many of these mothers out there experiencing exactly what this character is going through in this movie, and to represent all of them and their struggle and their frustration and their journey and their grief and their anger and sadness was important.
In 2016, the federal government launched a national inquiry into missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls. And because so many families want to share their stories of lost loved ones, the inquiry was extended until next April.
The residual trauma that's been passed down generation after generation is why a lot of people feel very, very lost, and why our people are more susceptible to violence in this way.
For young people like 8-year-old Lake DeLille, who plays the missing girl's little sister, the issue hits home.
It's really sad. I was reading through the script and I was crying. And it's sad because I have a brother. And I just think about if he goes missing, how sad I'll be. So I just think of that when I'm doing it.
Even though the film's subject matter is serious, Bonspiel says it's treated with a lot of love and hope.
If I can touch just a handful of people with this subject, then maybe that will allow them to understand more, want to learn more.
Learn more and create awareness about an issue that's affected so many. Amanda Klein, CTV News.
And we want to hear what you think. Here's how to continue the conversation. Send your emails to news@aptn.ca. Find us online at aptnnews.ca and on youtube.com/APTN News. You can also follow APTN News on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram for the latest Indigenous news. Time now for another break after the rest of tomorrow's weather.
Stay with us. After the break, a story about a Mohawk saint that is inspiring people in Quebec. To northern Alberta, 21 in rain and high level, 26 and smoke in Peace River, 29 in cloud and smoke in Edmonton, 30 down in Lethbridge with some sunshine. Campbell River, smoky and 26, Quesnel, sunny and 28. Dease Lake, rain and 17, Prince George, smoke and some wind, 26 degrees. Dawson City is in at 12, Whitehorse 13. Yellowknife, rain and 10, Norman Wells, rain and 8. Tuck is in at 6 with some sunshine. Deline, 6 and partially cloudy. Rain in Cambridge Bay and 5. 8 in rain in Baker's Lake. 5 in cloud in Resolute and Arctic Bay. Igloolik's in at 3 and Iqaluit, 6 and some rain. Welcome back. Kateri Tekakwitha, the lily of the Mohawks, lived more than 300 years ago, and she's still inspiring people today through a new multimedia production. Danielle Rochette has more.
It's a show to honor the memory of Saint Kateri Tekakwitha.
It's the most famous image of her.
Okay.
And that's what she looked like. This is the kind of clothing that people wore 350 years ago.
Darren Bonaparte was excited to see rehearsals begin in Montreal last week. He studied the life of Saint Kateri and was asked by the composer to write that part of the production.
My job was to write her story in her own words as if she was the author, to be spoken by the actress. So I was amazed at how easily that came out, because I've studied her life for so long that it was like she sat down next to me and just kind of dictated it to me.
Kateri Tekakwitha was canonized in 2012 by Pope Benedict. Hundreds of Mohawk and other Indigenous people made the journey to the Vatican to witness the event. Celebration was also held in Ganawage at the church in her name. Kateri Tekakwitha is the first Indigenous woman to become a saint. Composer Barbara Corral says she felt honored to be asked by the McGill Chamber Orchestra to compose a piece on Kateri.
After a long period of community consultation and really getting to know the elders personally and singing with the choir and speaking with the priest at Ganawage Church and across communities, Six Nations, Ganawage, Akwesasne, people living in Montreal as well, is to really understand what she means to everyone right now of all backgrounds.
Corral was inspired by the Mohawk language written and spoken in that piece, but also by the landscape Kateri traveled through.
The piece is in 4 acts. It follows the journey of the different villages, the 4 villages that she traveled. It was a very difficult journey. It was dangerous for a woman at her time. It was incredible what she went through, apart from the illness and losing her family. But it was really understanding the flow of the water, which is a woman-associated element.
For Bonaparte, Kateri is a great role model for people today.
We live in a world that women are taking their rightful place in society and in every aspect. They're regaining their voice. They're taking charge of the world, really. And she was way ahead of that. She was a person of great strength.
2 performances of the show will take place in October in Montreal and the Church of Ganawage, where Kateri's tomb is. Danielle Rochette, APTN National News, Montreal.
Next month, APTN will air a groundbreaking new series called First Contact. It's already generating a lot of buzz online with 1.5 million views of the show's trailer. Here's a sneak peek.
I think of alcoholism, I think of drug abuse, a whole bunch of partying and flop houses.
They just always get money and handouts.
How are they the worst off when they're given so much?
We are being made to pay for something that we didn't do.
Where's my money going?
They don't paint their houses. They don't fix windows.
Welfare's not a career.
They're angry at white people.
I mean, they want you to feel sorry for them.
Get off your ass if you're unhappy and go do something about it.
Feels like it's just a lost cause at this point.
I would like to take this opportunity to welcome all of you to my community so that you can see with your own eyes, experience with your own bodies, and feel with your own hearts what this community is really about.
This could be not so bad, it could be good, or it could be like, holy, what did I just sign up for?
I have not been to a reservation ever. We are going to stick out like sore thumbs.
It's our way of life, and just try and maintain it as best we can.
If I was to stay at one of those homes, I would find a place to go and take a shower first thing in the morning.
Welcome to Winnipeg's North End.
It is very scary. For one, I'm the minority here.
We're really looking at the long-term effects of a genocide.
There's lots of things that happen in the world. We've got to look ahead.
I'm just having a very hard time understanding.
That's not an excuse. You're a prime example of society.
I just want this day to be over with. This is camping for them. For me, it's like hell on earth.
We're not going anywhere. We've always been here. But how can we reconcile? How can we stand together?
Thanks for coming to my community.
I had no idea. It really puts a dark stain on the Canada that I thought I knew. I came here with ignorant views, and you know what? I was wrong.
I've never felt so foreign in my own country.
Just having you here is a good thing.
A lot of our stories are similar.
You know that old saying, walk a mile in my shoes and you'll understand. And we'll get there. We'll just say one heart at a time.
How good does that show look?
Right? There's a lot of buzz being generated about that. I've had the chance to watch those episodes as well. Sneak
Lucky
peek.
you.
I know. And I can tell you people will not want to miss that series. It's pretty amazing. And there's going to be a reunion special on In Focus that's going to be in conjunction with this series, and it'll be airing on September 12th and 13th. After episode 2 and 3 of this, we will have the participants and hosts and producers to answer all the questions that many of us will have after watching that series.
And I think a lot of people will be interested to hear from, especially the participants who spent 28 days in these communities and with these people.
Right, and you're curious to know what they think after they watch this too.
Yes, I will be looking forward to seeing that. That is all the news we have for you this Tuesday. I'm Dennis Ward. Thanks for tuning in.
I'm Melissa Ridge, and we'll see you back here tomorrow night. Good